My name is Phil LaMarche, and I'm the director of the Living Writers series here at SUNY Canton. I'm also I'm also an associate professor of creative writing and literature in the English and Humanities department. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everyone for joining us tonight. I'd like to thank you guys for giving me a reason to comb my hair and dress like an adult for a change. I don't know about the rest of you, but I've been spending a lot of time in sweatpants and t-shirts. So this is nice. Thank you for the excuse to dress up. I'd also, with the humor aside, I'd also really like to take a moment and have a moment of silence. I think it's a good idea to take a moment of silence for the folks that we've lost to the virus, for their families. I know a lot of folks have been infected in the SUNY Canton community, and I'd like to take a moment of silence for the folks who have been affected, their families, as well as the folks who are continuing to fight the virus on the front lines, our medical workers, all the essential workers out there who are keeping the gears of our society turning. So if you could join me in a moment of silence for all of those, for all those folks out there, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you. And to all of you out there, to all of you I know and all of you I don't know, the biggest thing I want to say to you is that I miss you. I miss you. I miss seeing you in the classrooms of school, in the hallways. I miss seeing you on the sidewalks. I miss seeing you at the pizza joints in town. And I can't wait for the day when we can all get back together. I really look forward to that. I do. I find myself missing you all. But until then, it's great that we have an opportunity like this to come together as a community, as a college, as a broader North Country community. It's great that we have an opportunity to come together tonight. And putting an event like this together really takes a village. And I've got some folks I need to thank who helped me put the Living Writers series together and keep it running. I'd like to thank the Canton College Foundation, the SUNY Canton offices of the president and the provost, the SUNY Canton Student Government Association, the School of Business and Liberal Arts, the SUNY Canton Public Relations Department, the Department of English and Humanities, as well as our many private donors. And I'd like to give a quick shout out to our online engagement coordinator, RJ Thayer, who has really helped bring this event together and transition the Living Writers series online this evening. It brings me great pleasure to introduce our speaker tonight. Danny Ramadan is an award-winning Syrian-Canadian author, public speaker, and LGBTQ refugee activist. Since his arrival to Canada as a refugee himself, Danny has published his award-winning debut novel, The Clothesline Swing. He is currently working on his next novel, The Foghorn Echoes, and a collection of short fiction, The Syrian Survival Notebook. His children's book, Salma and the Syrian Chef, published by Annick Press, has been released this year as well. My students and I have had the pleasure of reading his novel, The Clothesline Swing, which is a beautiful and expansive work of literature. It manages to be both a coming-of-age narrative of a young gay man in Damascus, while also being the story of an aging man and his lover in the reflective final chapters of their lives. It is a book that tackles the political reality of Syria in the wake of the Arab Spring and the onset of the Civil War, while also being an intensely personal and emotional tale. Members of the Assad family are forced to share the page with executed protesters, brought back from the dead by the figure of death himself. The work is both dreamlike and strikingly concrete, as it takes the audience on a journey through broad swaths of time, huge expanses of geography, and an intense spectrum of emotions. The Clothesline Swing, little plug, great reading in these times of isolation. I encourage you all of you to check it out. And it's been a pleasure to share this work with my students, and it's a pleasure to share it with you all tonight. Please help me welcome Danny Ramadan.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for inviting me over and welcome to my living room. Thank you so much, Phil, for putting this together, as well as for those wonderful words that you just said about my novel. If you can just like walk around with me all the time and just tell people how awesome I am, that would be great. I really would appreciate that. I'm talking to you here from Vancouver, BC in Canada. We are 3 hours early than you, so it's still a bit sunny in here. Um, and it's not 46 inches of snow, so yay us. Sorry how cold it is over there. So my name is Danny, and as Phil said, I'm a Syrian-Canadian author. I am going to be here with you for the next hour. I'll tell you a bit about my work, what I'm doing right now, what I did back home in Syria, as well as my future projects. I'm also really interested in getting to know you folks. RJ, thank you so much for putting this together. He has enabled the chat feature. So if you just touch around the screen, you'll see a little chat box. If you click on it, a little chat thing will appear on the side. You can share your questions with me. You can say hi. You can tell me I suck. I'm going to ignore the ones who tell me that I suck. Because I'm delusional. That's who I am. And then I am going to answer your questions. So we will get to have live interactions. One thing that I wanted to do that even during my readings, if you have a question, just shoot it there. If you found something that you are interested, a quote in my reading that really moved you, or you're like, meh, you could have written that better, write that there. The good comments I'll notice. The ones that I don't like that much, I'll just ignore them. I'll just pretend that I didn't read them. Let's see, can everybody just like quickly say hi to me on the chat? Just like quickly just type hi. I can't see everyone, so if you, yes, all those highs, more, show me. Howdy, yes, Jeremy, hi, hello, whoa, ahlan wa sahlan, hi, yes, thank you for the Arabic greeting, hi there, wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone. Clearly, we are all connected on the chat. I am going to start talking to you right now, and if you have anything that you would like to say at any time, send me that chat, and we will be able to have a conversation. Yep. Cool. Awesome. All right. So as I said, my name is Danny Ramadan. I was born Ahmad, but I prefer the name Danny. So please, if you're referring to me, use the name Danny. I was born in Damascus, Syria in 1984 to a Muslim, conservative, and seriously dysfunctional family. My father is a redhead, seriously conservative man who wanted me to grow up to be just like him. And I grew up to be exactly the opposite of everything that he is. He is the stuffed dude, he is a handyman, a contractor, and I grew up wanting to read poetry and to write books. Also, I think that he could tell that I'm queer, that I'm gay since I was like, I don't know, 4 or 5. Maybe it was my obsession with the Backstreet Boys. Hopefully it's my obsession with the Backstreet Boys and nothing else. So he tried to put me in what he considered character building activities. So that means that I did a lot of sports growing up. I did boxing. I did. I was hired to be an apprentice at the age of 12 at a construction site. I also went to an Islamic school from the age of 8 until 10, and then they kicked me out because I'm a troublemaker. And yes, so now I know how to fix electronics in the house because of my many apprentices. I also have big bodies and I can kick somebody's ass if anybody bothered me. But I'm still gay, so sorry, Dad. I grew up to be a journalist. I started writing for multiple newspapers throughout the Middle East, mainly in Egypt. I also published my first collection of short stories when I was 19 in Egypt. I worked for the foreign policy. I worked for The Guardian. I worked also for the Washington Post. I reported mainly about the social situations in Egypt up until during the Egyptian Revolution in 2011, or what was called quite naively at the time, the Arab Spring. It turned out to be an Arab winter, and not a nice winter either. The Egyptian Revolution was a pivotal moment in my life because I was living in Egypt at the time and I was reporting for it. I was reporting about it for multiple magazines and newspapers, and then I was kicked out of Egypt because of my work in journalism. I ended up back in Syria, and the Syrian Revolution started not a month later. So I divided my attention between continuing my journalism, so I continued to write in Syria, mainly about the Syrian Revolution, mainly for the Washington Post. And then I also I had an apartment, as people do, and I realized that there is a community that I belong to, the gay and lesbian community, that don't have a safe space to conjugate, to be together in Syria specifically during that time. Homosexuality is punishable by law in Syria. It's you are imprisoned for up to 3 years, as well as you face public shaming, in which they take your picture and they put it in newspapers to warn the society from your sexuality. So I turned my little apartment in Damascus into an LGBTQ underground center in a way. Ended up inviting a lot of folks into my home where we shared about our experiences, where we talked about our lives together, we watched queer movies. I must have watched The Birdcage like 28 times. Wow, that is such a good movie, and people just loved it over there. They just love The Birdcage. I see, hold on. Louise T, hi, you are so animated and I love you. Thank you so much for making me feel like I am not just talking to a wall. Thank you. All right. Yes, so I was arrested actually in May 2012 in Syria. And I was never informed why. I wonder sometimes, is it my work in journalism, or is it the fact that I was helping and supporting LGBTQ folks? And then 6 weeks later, I was released, and I ended up being kicked out of the country, and I ended up being a refugee in Lebanon. And that's when I started working on the Clothesline Swing, my novel. So I worked on the Clothesline Swing between 2012 until 2015. I came here to Canada in September 2014. So I worked the last couple of chapters, the last couple of edits of the Clothesline Swing in Canada. There was a lot of inspiration of the book from my own experiences as a queer man, but also from the experiences of all of those other queer men and queer women who came together into my home back in Damascus and built a community for themselves. So that's where the book is inspired, really. Their stories ended up being in the book, and actually in my acknowledgements at the end of the book, because many of them just wanted only their first name in there. So I dedicate the book to all of their 23 names that I have, that their stories ended up in the book. How about I read you some first? How about I read you some? All right. Again, don't forget about the chat. That's how I know that you're still listening. So if you have anything that you want to ask me, if you have anything that you hear as I read you from the book, yes, please read something. Yes, I will. I'm on it. I am on it. All right. So the first thing that I'm going to read from the book is actually from the prologue. The story of the Clothesline Swing. I would love to hear what's most meaningful to you. Oh, thank you, Daniel. I would love to hear what is most meaningful to you. All right. So the book is about two men Again, it's a fictional book, but it's based on non-fictional events. So the two characters in the book are not actually real people. They're, in a way, the vase that I poured all of those different stories into, and it created a narrative based on. I'm going to read you a story about the time that the two of them were still in Damascus. Some point of view, listener would like to hear about your path as a refugee. Sure. Whoa, so many questions. I cannot wait. I cannot wait to do this. So this is from the prologue. This is one of my favorite things to actually read because I actually find it to be quite meaningful to me. It's also, I think that writing about two queer men of color enjoying each other, being together, is in a way an act of resilience. So that is why I'm going to read this to you. I lost count of how many times we woke up at 3 a.m. to the sound of distant explosions coming from the other side of the city. The calm in the streets carried the sounds of war swiftly to our ears and woke us up frightened and lonely. You whined one night, half asleep, pulled out of your land of dreams, worrying that the explosion were too close to us. I brushed your hair with my fingers, calming you down. It's fireworks. It's just the sound of fireworks, I whispered, and you went right back to sleep. One night, the explosion was too close. It shook the apartment and woke us both up. We heard the explosion and thought it might have happened right outside our street. It was followed by the sound of machine guns rushing through the streets. We crawled on all four as we escaped the exposed bedroom to the windowless bathroom. I lay down in the bathroom tub and you rested your body upon mine. Your eyes were wide open like small white dishes. You shivered and started to bite your lips. I told you, I got you, and hugged you closer until the sound of machine guns morphed into an unrecognizable noise. That night in the tub, I made love to you, as if we were reciting poetry about the beauty of Damascus. I woke your senses with opening lines and flirtatious gestures, sneaking into your word like the first drops of sun rays. On the mountains of Damascus, I colored your face with the shades of sunrise as I pulled on your earlobes with my teeth. I roamed the corners of your body like a lost traveler exploring the old sleepy streets of the city, knocking on the doors of your soul with the tips of my fingers, like a shy delivery boy knocking on the wooden doors of old homes in Saruja, carrying warm bread and beledi cheese. I turned your body around and I tickled your feet, and you laughed like a child riding Duwecha in the Jala Amusement Park. I murmured whispers of pleasure in your ears, like the size of an old wooden bridge aching under the pressure of the souls it carries. I joined my body with yours and we moved, as if we were slipping up and down the hills of the wavy roads of Al-Muhajireen. I printed breathless kisses on your forehead while I let your body slip away from mine, covered in my bite marks and glorious sweat. By the time we opened the bathroom door and returned to bed, the sound of machine gun fire was long gone. All right, awesome. I hope you enjoyed this. If you enjoyed this, please let me know. I see that I have a couple of questions right here. I will get to them. I will. Let me tell you a bit more about where I am right now and what I do. Oh, thank you, Tyler. I appreciate it. I like people who tell me that I'm amazing. I really do. You're the best. All right, cool. So at the moment, I'm at my home in Vancouver. I'm actually moving apartments, and today is my last day in this apartment. There's a bookshelf behind me, but it's actually empty. I'm moving 6 blocks away. Matthew, my husband, and I, we bought a house. So we're very happy about that. Moving in the time of the coronavirus is not something that you want to do because nobody wants to move stuff. But here we are. So, as I said, I'm currently living in Vancouver. I have been living here since 2014. I'm finishing my master's at the University of British Columbia in creative writing, my MFA in creative writing. I'm also teaching at the University of British Columbia. I teach creative writing to 101, 201. I'm working on my next novel, which is called The Foghorn Echoes. The novel is my thesis. So my thesis advisor is actually working on the second draft right now. Usually people submit 35 to 50,000 words of a thesis. I submitted 110,000 words. My thesis advisor hates me. Yep. Mm-hmm. And I was just joking a minute ago about how like last week, I gave my second draft and I'm like, here's my second draft. This is the best thing I've written in my life. I love it so much. I don't even need you to grade me. And then today I texted him being like, please evaluate me. Please grade me and tell me I'm awesome, please. Anyway, yeah, so The Foghorn Echoes is my next book coming out for adults. Last week, 2 weeks ago, my children's book, Salma the Syrian Chef, came out of Annick Press. All things considered is doing really well. I was supposed to be on a book tour right now, but that's not happening. Other than that, I run an event here in Vancouver called An Evening in Damascus once a year, which is a fundraiser for LGBTQ identifying refugees. So I donate all the money to our organization called Rainbow Refugee, who privately sponsors LGBTQ folks to come here to Canada. And I have been doing it for 5 years. Last year, we raised $50,000 in one night, which is amazing. That's about it for where I am right now. And I'm going to look at your questions. So here, let's work on those questions. And if you have questions, I will be happy to answer them. So now it's the time for you to post questions. I see a question, like to hear what's most meaningful to you. Thank you, Peggy. That was one of my favorite things. I'll read something else later on, just to finish this off in like, I don't know, before we go, I'll read you something else that is also meaningful and see where we are. Chapter 7 made me the most emotional. Oh, thank you. Chapter 7. Chapter 7, The Tale of the Queen's Zoo. Oh, I love that chapter. I mean, I love the whole thing, but that chapter is really cool. Yeah. Thank you, Jillian. All right. At some point, if you're willing, we would like to hear about your path as a refugee, how you got here, the actual logistics and locations involved in the journey. That's a great question, Melissa. I'll be happy to answer it. So again, I left Damascus in June 2012, ended up in Beirut. In Beirut, I registered with the United Nations Higher Commission for Refugees, short for UNHCR. And then I just sat down and waited. I was working at the time from Beirut with the Washington Post. And they did a small story about me that ended up being big here in Vancouver. Somebody here in Vancouver read about who I am and how I was forced out of Damascus and was like, hey, do you want to come to Canada? I'm like, yeah. What do you mean? Here in Canada, we have a program called private sponsorship, which means that fine folks like yourself, like me, who are Canadian or permanent residents here in Canada can come together and look for humanitarian cases of refugees. So say a single mother, a gay man, a lesbian woman, a trans woman, somebody with a difficult illness, somebody who has been overlooked by the system for a long period of time, and they can privately sponsor that person. So we submit the man here with a group of his friends and the support of Rainbow Refugee, the organization I raise money for, submitted an application to the Canadian government being like, we want this guy here in Canada. Can you get it for us? Get him for us. And the Canadian government was like, yeah, sure, as long as you'll take care of him for the first year. And they said, yeah, cool, we'll do. And then 9 months later, the Canadian government gave me a flight and I ended up in Vancouver. It sounds way easier than it is, but it's a lot of like paperwork and a lot of waiting, but it's one of the things that the Canadian government allows us to do here. And that's how I sponsor a lot of the refugees that I help support to come here to Canada. I know that in the US, this is not the case at all. So we are going to move on. Thank you for the question, Melissa. Does the novel coincides with your personal life from the past in some aspects? Mastan is if I'm saying any names wrong, I'm really sorry in advance. But Mastan is asking, does the novel coincides with your personal life from the past in some aspects? They say write what you know. I don't know if whomever wrote Eat, Pray, Love met a hottie in Spain and then went and ate spaghetti in Italy, but I assume she did. Same goes for the Clothesline Swing. Yes, there's a lot of truth in the book, but there's not a lot of real in the book. So there's a lot of things that I wrote knowing that they're true to my own experience, to the experiences of those people who talk to me, but that they're not necessarily real to who I am and how my life evolved, if that makes sense. So I'm more true than real. I like that. Yeah, I like that. I hope that answered the question. All right, next question. There's a lot of people saying thank you. There's a lot of people saying amazing. I appreciate that. You are amazing. Emily is saying thank you so much for taking the time to be with us in the middle of a move. Your reading was lovely. Thank you, Emily. That is so sweet of you to say. I also really like your last name, Hamilton Honey. What a last name. Lovely. If I used it as a name of a character, people would be like, oh, come on, it's on the nose. Seriously? All right. Be careful when you move into a house. You'll be so taken with all the space you have. You will start to buy a ton of books and then fill it up. Hopefully, work on it. Work on it. All right. Daniel is asking, do you have any ambitions to influence the laws, cultures of Syria? Oh, wow. That is a big question, Daniel. Isn't Daniel the one with the big bookcase behind him? No, that's Daniel McLean. Hi, Daniel McLean. Hi. Yes, he's another Daniel. So Daniel Dunn is asking, do you have any ambitions to influence the laws and cultures of Syria? I think, let me just, water, I promise, it's not even wine. All right. I think that everything that we do, as long as we do it with conviction and with intention, will lead to an influence of one way, shape, or sort, one way, shape, or sort to the world around us. I do everything that I do. I write with intention. I write with conviction. I do the work that I do and advocate with intention and conviction. I am very intentional about what I post on my Twitter. I am out on Twitter. I'm out on Instagram. I'm out on Facebook. I'm very public as a person. And I'm very Syrian. And I'm very Canadian. And I'm very gay. So it's really important to me that just by being there, just by posting a wedding photo with my husband, holding hands and saying, and like having a belly dancer who's Syrian dancing in my wedding, and a drag queen who's Canadian doing a show at my wedding, having those aspects come together and showing that they can fit by showing by example means that people are going to see that for what it is. And maybe there's a 16-year-old in Syria who stumbles upon my Instagram and be like, oh, he's Syrian. and he's married to another man and he is happy, and maybe I can be happy too. So I hope that that's my influence on the law and culture in Syria. Thank you for the question. Do you have readership in Syria? I hope so. I don't know if I have readership in Syria, Melissa. I'm sorry. We tried to translate the book to Arabic, but it's nobody wants to publish it in Arabic because of all the gay sex scenes. However, it's translated to Hebrew, to French, to German, to Spanish, and soon to Italian. So I have readership in Germany and Israel. Essential tracks, artists that are the soundtrack to your writing. Yes, I love that question, Daniel. Thank you so much for asking. I actually have a playlist for every book that I write. So the Foghorn Echoes, I literally turned on my Spotify as I'm talking to you. The Foghorn Echoes, my next book, has its own playlist, which I'm happy to actually share it with you. I'll just post it here. Here we go. I'll post the link to it here. You see, we couldn't have done this if I was actually on a stage right there. Here, I shared the playlist. So every playlist that I create, I love that question so much because it really hits on my writing. Every book that I create, I think of my character, the main character, the protagonist, and I think of what music they listen to. And then as I'm writing their characters, as I'm writing from first person perspective, I listen to their music and let that be my connection to who they are, if that makes sense. So I really love that question, and I shared my playlist. There's a lot of some Arabic music. There's some Shawn Mendes, but that's because I think Shawn Mendes is sexy. There's some Sam Smith, Maroon 5. Emily Sand is amazing. So folks, you should listen to her, and other beautiful, fantastic folks. All right. I'm just looking at the next question. I would love to hear about how you came up with the idea for Salma the Syrian Chef. The book looks so adorable. Thank you for that question, Emily. I appreciate it. Salma the Syrian Chef came to me at 4 o'clock in the morning. I woke up dreaming that I was eating a Syrian meal. And then the next morning, I decided to cook that Syrian meal for my husband. And something that would have taken me 20 minutes to cook in Syria meant that we jumped in the car, went to 4 different superstores, like a European deli, and 3 other spice shops to find all the right ingredients for it, and realize how difficult it is to make something that is so easy to make over there. And that became the theme of the book. A little girl who was trying to just make a meal for her mother to make her happy, and realizing how much something that is easy over there can be difficult here, but with having friends and having community and building relations, that difficulties can be eased. So this is where the book came from. A lot of truth, not a lot of real. I like that too. Thank you, Dora. Other than your sexual orientation, what has been the hardest obstacle in your life? I like this. Thank you for asking, Adriana. I don't think my sexual orientation was a hard obstacle in my life. I think my sexual orientation was a blessing and a gift, and I'm so happy I'm gay. I am the happiest gay queer man ever there is. I was literally the grand marshal for the Pride Parade. Yeah, and I wore a bow tie and stuff and t-shirts. And it was sexy. Oh, there's somebody who's very... Melissa Lee, thank you so much for being also super animated. I really appreciate that. Yes, so I do not think that my sexual orientation was a difficult obstacle. If anything, it made me who I am, because I'm not just gay when I'm holding hands with my husband. I'm also gay when I'm eating breakfast. I'm gay when I am searching the internet for the next RuPaul's Drag Race rumors, but also I'm gay when I am reading a book about economy. you can separate that and turn it into an obstacle. It's part of who I am. I don't see it as an obstacle. The hardest obstacle I had is governments in a way, and the way that they are trying to emulate who I am towards what they want to be the norm. And I'm talking specifically about Syrian government, of course, as well as any dictatorship out there. I live here in Canada in a democracy where there is a lot of space for me to be exactly who I am, which is fantastic. But the hardest obstacle was definitely the need for people, for dictators to dictate what people do. So I would say that that's the biggest challenge that I faced in my life. People telling me what to do and me like being like, no, I'll do whatever the fuck I want to do. Sorry, excuse me, I didn't mean to swear. All right. What other languages do you speak? I speak Arabic, marhaba, kifkun, and I speak English. Hi, how are you? I used to speak Kurdish because my mother is half Kurdish, but that was until I was like 8 or 9. So now I don't even know how to say hello in Kurdish. It's just like gone. And I tried to learn some Spanish because when I went to Mexico, everybody thought that I'm Mexican. So I tried to learn Spanish, but that didn't work because I don't have time. But thank you for asking the question. To save one's life is to save the whole world. Everything you do matters. Thank you, Zaif. Yes, I agree. Thank you so much. Anne-Marie, my best friend was born in Aleppo. She got her parents out and came to the US. Her inheritance is gone forever. Surviving is your victory. Success is your reward. Oh, that's so lovely. Thank you. Thank you, Anne-Marie. Oh, thank you, my friend. Hi. Hi, Anne-Marie. Thank you so much. That is lovely of you to say. I appreciate it. Brianna Gardner, have you had anyone reach out to you from either Syria or another culture when it comes to sexual orientation? Reach out to you about your book, giving their opinions, good or bad? How did you handle it? I get a lot of messages, again, just because I am out of the closet and I am visible as a queer man. I get a lot of questions and requests from people in the Middle East to help them take the same path that I took to come here to Canada. And I handle it usually by referring them to organizations that help those folks. So I have a template email that I send to those folks, talking to them like, here's the link to Rainbow Refugee. Here's the link to how do you qualify for immigration? This is what you have to do. And I send it to them. That's how I handle it. I also get a lot of young folks like 16 or 17 emailing me, like texting me on Instagram being like, hi, I think I'm gay. I don't know what to do with my life. And I usually just like talk to them for half an hour, 45 minutes, listen to them. I think the thing that I do the most is that I validate them. I tell them, yes, you can be whatever you want to be, and however you feel right now is valid. And of course it's hard. Like, I can't fix it from my side of the word. I can't like reach out through the screen and grab you, but the only thing I can do is validate you and tell you, you are fine. You're just fine. You're 100%. It's when I was 10 or 12, I was in the backyard. I remember in high school, in middle school, and everybody around you, the whole yard was filled with boys because it's an elementary school and it's gendered, who are playing together. Like, I had to scan the whole, like there are 500 children in there, and I scanned the whole thing, and I was the only one who's on my own in the whole thing. And I remember clearly being like, I must be the loneliest kid in all of the world. And I wish there's a way that I can go back to that kid and be like, dude, you'll make it. It's fine. You are fine the way you are. You are exactly where you need to be. And yes, it's going to be hard and difficult, but Like right now, one day you're going to be living in a place where the community accepts you, where you are happily married, where you're talking to, I don't know, like 43 people online on Wednesday afternoon, being like, here is my life and here's who I am. And I be as authentic about it as you can. So, and I try to tell the folks who talk to me the same thing, that it's not about tomorrow, it's not about next year, it's about 5 years, 10 years from now. If you are authentic about it, if you're intentional about it, things are going to look up to you. All right. Wow. Coming from from an oppressive area, what was the biggest shock for you when you moved to non-oppressive countries? Caleb, that's a good question. That people eat poutine here, and it's really weird. And then you fall in love with it. I don't know. I think the question assumes that one culture is better than the other. That there's Syria, the oppressive culture, and there's Canada, the non-oppressive culture. And I want to invite you, Caleb, to think about that for a bit. I want you to think about Syria. For you in your head, Syria is a place where there's a war and it's desert and people are killing each other and the regime is oppressive and all of that. For me, Syria is also the first place, the place where I was born, the place where I wore shorts for the first time, the place where I kissed a boy for the first time, the place that have the best strawberries in the world and they taste delicious. And yes, it's oppressive and it's homophobic and it's difficult to navigate, but it's a place that has a lot of positive memories to me. And then you look at Canada, and yes, it's non-oppressive and it's way more comfortable to be here and all of that. But the stars look different, and you have to learn to see them differently. The way you drive is different. The way you think is different. You have to use a different language. So what I'm saying is, there's no comparison. You're comparing apples to oranges. This has its pros and cons, and this has its pros and cons. All right. Personal question. Answer it if you want, or don't answer. It's up to you. Does your father speak with you? No, he does not. I do not speak to my father, and my father does not speak to me. Where are your parents? My father is in Turkey, I believe, and my mother is still in Damascus, but we're not in touch. They kicked me out when I was 17, and that's totally fine by me because I created a lot of fantastic spiritual friends and families. I call my mother-in-law Ma because she is very loving and close to me, and I connect with a lot of dear friends who have been my friends for 12, 14 years, who are my brothers and my sisters. So I feel like I have a good family. I don't need a family that is not good to me. All right. Hey Phil, do we still have a lot of time, or where are we with time?
We're at about 7:15.
All right, so let's give it 2 more questions. Go, awesome. All right. So knowing you are out in the world, being a person who those kids can connect to and validate, offer me hope for humanity. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Melissa. You should write a novel where the narrator is you in the present, addressing the you who was the lonely little boy. Aw, that's a cute idea. I would be into it. I'm actually working on like 3 projects at the moment, so I will add this to my list. There's the collection of short stories, which is going to give me a heart attack. The novel, which already gave me a heart attack. I'm also working on a young adults novel called The Son of the Silk Maker, which is very early stages, and a non-fiction book. But that might be the thing that you're talking about, Melissa. Like that might be the book where I talk to the young boy in there. All right, Louise, as a fellow activist, I know this work takes so much energy. How do you maintain work-life activist marriage balance? You're beautiful and your movie, love Birdcage. And music choices are right up my alley. All right. Awesome. That's a great question. The life, marriage, work, activist balance. To begin with, I have a very, very, very supportive husband. My husband truly cares for everything I do, and I care for everything that he does. So him standing there for me is really quite important to me, and provides me with a cushion to relax on, but also somebody who every now and then be like, I think I need to take your laptop and your mobile away now. Now it's time for you to like eat this cheese, drink this wine, and play a board game or something. So he's very aware of my life and helps me quite a lot with that. I think the thing that I do is that I also learn to say no. So as an activist, as somebody who's out there, as somebody who does all of those work, who writes and all of that, I need to learn to set boundaries, being like, I'm so sorry. I know that this is important, but I can't do it. I'm sorry, but I just can't do it. So I learned how to know that I can't save the whole world. I can't do everything all the time. Sometimes I have to say no to things. I hope that helps. Find yourself a man that supports you, or a woman or a person that supports you. And if you don't, you're enough. You can support yourself. All right. What is the best advice you could give to anyone who may be questioning their sexuality or scared to come out because of their family or just in general? I love that question. It's interesting because we think of coming out as if like one day you're just going to like literally slam the door of a closet and jump out and being like in rainbow outfits and high heels being like, I'm out now. It's it doesn't work that way. So sexuality is very fluid, and what you feel today is not something that will be what you might feel for the rest of your life. What you are into today might not be something that you are into for the rest of your life. And that's totally fine. And just sit with it, just allow it to be who you are. Like if you are waking up this morning feeling that you miss your best friend, you want to cuddle with your best friend, that is fine. And if you don't want to cuddle with anybody and you feel like you don't want to do it for the rest of your life, that's also fine. You do you the way that you are. Secondly, and that's where I'm going to get activisty and lecture-like, there's no such a thing as coming out. Coming out is a concept that was created in the 80s and the 90s during the time of the AIDS crisis, in which the folks who are fighting the AIDS crisis had this like campaign to want people to accept gay people as part of who they are. So they pushed for gay people to come out to their families, forcing the families into one of two narratives. You're either the embracing family that loves their son, or you're the rejective family that will kick your son out. And you don't need to come out. You are gay, whether you are in the closet or out of the closet. You're gay when you're eating breakfast, or where you're gay when you're with somebody else. You don't need to come out. You just don't. It's your thing. You literally don't need to tell anybody. So stay with it. Question your sexuality for as long as you need to, until you find the answers that suits you. And when you find the answers that suits you, then you'll be like, okay, cool, awesome. You don't need to tell anybody those answers. If you feel like telling people, that's cool also as well. Like if you want to go and tell your best friend who you trust, that is cool. If you don't, just don't. Who cares? It's your thing. All right. I feel like I have time for one last question. Yes, Phil? You can just nod. Yes? Cool. Awesome. All right. Could you tell us about the idea of distinctly Syrian gay culture, Arab gay culture, even in the Sephora? I mean, in contrast to for our conversation with a sort of a global gay culture, what about queer culture around women? All right, that's a very interesting question. It will take me hours to actually dissect that question. Um, I'm not going to go about what about gay culture, queer culture for around women, because I haven't experienced that, so I wouldn't be able to give you like a clear non-voyeur answer to that question. Um, Arab culture, Arab gay culture is extremely under, quite hidden. It's very hidden. We have languages like, you know, Pig Latin. We have a version of that in Arabic that only gay people understand and teach each other, so we can communicate in public without being outed. We have a family system. So the same way that drag queens in the US have a family system where there is the mother of the house and there are like multiple drag queens who are the daughters and they're all sisters, and then there's the grandchildren and the mother has sisters, so you have aunts and stuff like that. Gay people in Syria have exactly the same system. So there is the gay man, and like, take me for example, I am a father of a house. I belong to a different house before, and I have brothers from that different house. And then multiple younger gay men gathered around me around the time that I was in Syria, and they were considered my children. So we had that support system to support one another. But as I said, it's very subdued, it's very hidden, and that's how the culture is. But I have to say, there was a lot of joy in there as well. Like, we used to go out for picnics together. We used to go for restaurants, and we used to throw parties in private gardens. Like, we would rent a garden for the day and throw a party together, like 20, 30, 40 gay men just hanging out. Not that kind of party, but a very close kind of party. All right. On that note, I feel like I have hit my point of your tolerance for me. And I feel like, Phil, you need to swipe in and like end this before I start talking about parties in Syria.
Thank you, Danny. Did you want to take, I know at the beginning, earlier on, you said you wanted to take us out on another short reading. Would you like to take us out on another short reading in the book?
I would love that. Yeah, 100%. I'll be more
That'd be a nice
happy.
bookend to the event.
Sure. Just so you would know, folks, I moved all of my books. And then realized half an hour ago that when I did that, I moved also my copy of the Clothesline Swing to the new house. So my neighbor, who's one of my best friends, I called him and I'm like, hey, can you get me your copy of my book? And he's like, yeah, sure. So I don't know where I'm reading from. I'm literally just searching through the book for something to read. Hold on. It's the next chapter, the one with the, yes, here we go. Yes, that's a good read. Oh, all right. I'm gonna read you from the chapter number 9. It's called The House with the Belvedere. This is where the storyteller, the main character, is talking about his childhood in Damascus. I was born in my grandfather's house in Damascus. My father was 19 and my mother was 17. He heard my mother scream. He heard a short, snappy cry, and saw the midwife leave the room holding a blanket covering a red being that made vague gestures with its hands. Pray in his ear, the midwife whispered. Kabir in his ear. My father, young, city, unaware of what awaits him, held my body and whispered in my ear, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allah is great. In the mid-80s, you would only hear those Allahu Akbars spoken outside of mosques when a baby was born or when they were screamed out loud as a sign of total astonishment. For example, When my uncles watched a football match on the old static TV, they would throw things in the air and scream Allahu Akbar when their favorite team scored. The next morning, one of them would be sitting with friends who had seen the same match, smoking argile under the white neon lights of a cafe in old Damascus. They'd be drinking tea, and my uncle would be telling his friends about the goal they all had seen the night before. We weren't sure we'd make it, ya zalame, he would say. Suddenly, Allahu Akbar, we scored. The meaning of words changes with time. 30 years later, Allahu Akbar scared the world and injected fear into the hearts of millions. Dark-featured fighters carrying long swords were beheading people while screaming Allahu Akbar with the same amusement my uncles felt for their football matches. Thank you, folks. I hope you enjoyed that. And I think that's shukran sadiqi. Oh, that's so cute. Somebody wrote that in Arabic. Let's see. Wow. I think we had a tendency to fall into good, bad, oppressive, non-oppressive mentality. And we forgot that there are many good and desirable qualities to every culture. That is true. Thank you, Peggy. Thank you for taking your time to spend it with us. Of course, I'm happy that I'm there. Thank you to Peggy for thanking me, to Jeremy, to Emily as well. Thank you, Emily. Adriana as well. I can't pronounce this name, Silas. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Silas. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Melissa, thank you, friend. Thank you for sharing your time with us. Appreciate it. Thank you. Oh, wow. Thank you. Oh my God, I can't read all of this. Thank you so much for coming, folks. I really enjoyed myself. I really am thankful that I got to spend some time with you. I hope you enjoyed yourself too. You can follow me on Facebook. Just look for Danny Ramadan and you can follow me there. I'm also on Twitter at Danny Sees It. Danny Sees It. If you want to find me on Twitter, that is the easiest way to catch me. Don't look for me on Instagram because I'm really gay on Instagram. So let's not do that to you. Over back to Phil. Thank you so much, Phil, for putting this together. I really appreciated this. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing your story with us and taking so many questions. Thanks to everyone out there for joining us. It's great to see all of your tiny little faces on the screen and see your names. I can't wait until we can be together again as you know, in person. Thanks to all the supporters for the Living Writers series. I wish all of you the best out there. Stay safe, stay well, stay healthy. It was great to share the evening with you. Hopefully next fall, the Living Writers series will have a new lineup and we will be together in one way or another next fall. I can tell you that. We'll have speakers. We'll be either together in person or we'll be doing more of this. We'll see what the future brings. So I wish all of you the best. Thank you again, Danny, and have a great evening.